This is a Live Music Capital micro podcast with Eric Lycum.
Austin City Council has embarked on an unprecedented effort to help fund those who strive to keep Austin the live music capital of the world. It's something called the Live Music Fund. For the last 20 years or so, debate has raged within the Austin music community about whether the city should help fund musicians and music organizations that were not nonprofit. Back in September of 2019, Council took up the issue as part of an added agenda item at its meeting. What they discussed was raising the hotel occupancy tax, or hot tax as it's known, to its legal limit, and then carving out a percentage of that increase. That percentage would be dedicated to commercial music firms and musicians. Austin Tourism Commission Chairman Kat Whittington explains.
The funding allocations as proposed by this ordinance, by my understanding, are in line with the recommendations of both of those boards and compliant with state law, and those recommendations were unanimously approved in both instances. So I'm here today speaking as a longtime member of the music community, a musician, stagehand, concert promoter, and fan. Regarding funding for music, the intention of the Visitor Impact Task Force was that new funding from the hotel occupancy tax, or the equivalent of 0.3 cents per taxable dollar, should be allocated by criteria that invests in the bottom line of musicians, music venues, and programs that drive music tourism in Austin, the commercial music sector. Such criteria should be developed and implemented under the full engagement of the music community and not under the existing nonprofit funding model and criteria.
In other words, instead of nonprofits and for-profits competing for the same slice of pie, they would make a bigger pie and give for-profits a slice. In this case, 0.3 cents for every taxable dollar would go to music. Some council members like Kathy Tovo, whose district includes downtown, had her concerns.
We have a thriving cultural arts scene, and I think they all deserve to be supported through the cultural arts funding. And if the real challenge is that our commercial music can't compete with the larger bucket of cultural arts funding, it's just simply an act of council to allow commercial music to be part of that process. If they've been excluded because there's a provision that doesn't allow nonprofits, that's just an act of council. So there are multiple ways, I think, of providing opportunities for commercial venues other than this one, and I want to watch this over time and see whether some of those other paths are as beneficial, or potentially more so.
Councilmember Ann Kitchen, who represents South Austin, where a huge number of musicians reside, chimed in.
But I'm not understanding why we are limiting it to music and why we wouldn't do this for the arts community also, the visual arts community.
Whittington had a response to that.
With all due respect to the organizations and programs that are currently funded by the hotel occupancy tax, Austin is the live music capital of the world. It's not the chamber music capital, visual arts capital, performing arts capital, historic preservation capital, or the convention center capital of the world. While the creative arts community is in agreement that commercial music needs its own funding stream, and the Visitor Impact Task Force recommended such a funding stream, we are still at risk of pursuing policy that only nominally impacts the bottom line of the music community if we are not deliberate in creating new objective criteria to manage these funds.
Council went on to approve the measure, but not without this comment from Kathy Tovo.
I'm comfortable doing this today with the understanding, which I think is the understanding, that we can continue to evaluate and we can always make changes to this. I see the provisions that are going away says it can't be done as part of the budget, but it can be done as an act of council. We can always change those. We can always change the allocation within those percentages.
Fast forward to January 6, 2020, when the Austin Music Commission had its meeting and the Live Music Fund was a huge agenda item. Austin Creative Alliance CEO John Reedy appeared and, with Councilmember Tovo's remark in mind, issued this warning.
I am so excited that the city has finally decided to give money to live music. I've been advocating for that since I got involved in advocacy 10 years ago. However, watching from the front row, I urge you guys to be deeply skeptical and vigilant. Pay attention to the entire conversation around the hotel tax and the convention center, not just how it relates to music, because if you do, you may have noticed that the city recently rolled back its promises to the county. One of the reasons that the county commissioners did not endorse Prop B is that the city promised them they would pay off the Chapter 334 debt. The city has rolled that back, and the county recently announced it would withdraw from the Travis County Expo Center, which is a huge economic opportunity, development opportunity in the Eastern Crescent that's not going to happen because the city backed off of its promise. My point is, 3 major promises were made this fall in the campaign, one to the county, one to the homeless advocates, and one to music. 2 out of 3 of those promises are now being rolled back. So please protect this money. Pay attention to the entire conversation because lots of things are moving. And the Tourism Commission, I can tell you, you won't always get the best information from the hotel industry.
A survey is up now at speakupaustin.org. That's speakupaustin.org, where you can offer your thoughts and suggestions on how best to divvy up that money. I plan to report on the outcome of the work group meeting and the reaction by the Austin Music Commission on the next Live Music Capital.
This has been a Live Music Capital micro podcast. I'm Mark Waldy, thanking you for listening. Get more at the Live Music Capital Facebook page and at ericlycum.com.